Hello and welcome to F1 Chicanery. You know, I hadn't initially planned to make this video, but what Oscar Piastri has been pulling off lately has been nothing short of a shocker, not just for me, but for everyone who follows Formula One. As you guys already know from the title what we're going to talk about today, so let's not waste another moment and jump straight into it. Last race weekend in Qatar, Oscar Piastri won the sprint race and became the third driver to beat Max Verstappen in a race in 2023. And yeah, people are going to say it's not a proper race, and they are right. The sprint is short, and it got even shorter due to 3 freaking safety cars. Sure, Piastri was helped by the safety cars a bit, but even when Max was chasing him in the last 3 laps, he held his ground and refused to let Max get any closer. The way he maintained his composure in the lead, well, it speaks volumes about his confidence. And let's not forget he clinched pole position in the sprint shootout. So it wasn't all luck. And then there was the main race on Sunday, where Piastri started from the 6th position on the grid and crossed the line in 2nd place, just a mere 4 seconds behind Max Verstappen, which I think was quite surprising. Have the McLarens finally cracked the code and will go toe-to-toe with the Red Bulls from now on? Well, it's a tantalizing question, but it's too early to say. Now, before we dive into the comparison between Lando and Oscar, let's take a glimpse into the incredible journey of Oscar Piastri before he graced the Formula One scene. Oscar Piastri was born in 2001 in Melbourne, Australia. He moved to the UK in 2016 to advance his racing career. In 2017, he rocked the British Formula 4 Championship, securing a 2nd place finish in the standings. In 2018, he took on the Formula Renault competition, finishing 8th with Arden Motorsport. But it was 2019 that marked a pivotal year. Competing again in Formula Renault, he joined the Race GP team and clinched the championship title, setting the stage for a championship winning streak that would create history. He was also drafted into the Alpine Junior Academy. The year 2020 witnessed Piastri's remarkable victory in the Formula 3 Championship with Prema Racing, besting tough contenders like Theo Pourchaire, Logan Sargent, Frederick Vesti, and Liam Lawson. And in 2021, he won the Formula 2 Championship. When a young kid steps into Formula 2 and clinches the championship in his very first year, that's a sign of something extraordinary. There's an undeniable spark of brilliance in the kid. Now let me put this into perspective for you. Only 5 other legends of the sport have managed this incredible feat. We're talking about the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Nico Rosberg, Nico Hulkenberg, Charles Leclerc, and George Russell. And Piastri is the first driver in history to win the Formula Renault, Formula 3 and Formula 2 championships in successive rookie years. It's quite an accomplishment, to be honest. While we all expected him to be roaring on the Formula 1 grid in 2022, it was Zhou Guanyu who got the F1 seat, and Piastri had to make do with reserve driver roles for Alpine and McLaren. It's a stark reminder that in Formula 1, there's more than meets the eye.
This is business!
Even when you've aced the junior categories, it takes a whole lot to secure your spot on the starting grid. And then came the unforgettable Alpine Piastri saga in the summer of 2022, which shook the entire Formula One world. When Oscar made the leap from Alpine to McLaren in 2022, I'll admit I was one of those who raised an eyebrow. Alpine was sitting pretty as the 4th best team at the time, while McLaren, well, they were in a bit of a rough patch. It was a gamble that left many of us perplexed. But here's the thing. I respected his decision because I saw the immense talent in this guy. I couldn't help but feel that Alpine might just park him on the sidelines for another year with no confirmed seat in sight, especially if Fernando Alonso extended his contract. Alpine, let's be honest, seemed to be downplaying Oscar's potential. And in fairness, it's a tough spot to pin it all on them. After all, Fernando Alonso had pulled off a stellar performance in 2021, and Alpine decided to roll with the experience over young talent. But when it came to McLaren, well, it was complete opposite. There were even whispers of Piastri potentially driving on loan for Williams. All these signs pointed to the fact that Alpine might not be all that keen on him. To make matters more confusing, they didn't even have him under any contract, which, if you ask me, was a colossal blunder on Alpine's part. So he got an offer from McLaren, which was leaning heavily on Lando Norris at the time, as Daniel was wrestling with the car. Daniel still had a year left on his McLaren contract, but they amicably decided to part ways. It just wasn't the partnership Daniel had hoped for, and he scored quite the payday in the process. Also, Daniel swiftly landed the 3rd driver role at Red Bull, keeping himself connected with the Formula One scene. And now, looking back, I have to say that signing with McLaren was probably the best decision Oscar could have made. Even Red Bull team principal Christian Horner admitted that he regrets missing out on the chance to sign Piastri to their junior team during his Formula 4 years. Now, coming back to the topic, is Oscar Piastri better than Lando Norris? While comparing their performances in junior categories, both Lando and Oscar showed remarkable talent, clinching numerous championships along the way. And while Lando may not have bagged the Formula 2 title, he was second in the standings, in kind of an inferior car. And yes, it's a spec series, how shocking, so it's safe to say they were both phenomenal in the junior categories. Let's shift our focus to their Formula 1 performances, which, let's be honest, is where the spotlight truly shines. In the opening 8 races of this season, back when McLaren's car wasn't exactly competitive, both Lando and Oscar managed to storm into Q3 an impressive 4 times. Now, when the rubber hit the road on Sundays, Lando managed to beat Oscar in just 4 races. In Bahrain, Oscar had to retire due to some technical issue. And in the remaining 3 races, it was Oscar who took the checkered flag ahead of Lando. So pretty close, right? Let's jump into the next 8 races, where both cars got kitted out with shiny new upgrades. We won't be counting Austria, as only Lando's car was fitted with upgrades there. Now, this is where things get interesting. After the upgrades, both McLaren drivers made it into Q3 on every race weekend, except for Singapore, where Piastri's flying lap in Q1 got tangled in the chaos caused by Lance Stroll's unexpected dance with the barriers. Now, if we ignore Singapore, Piastri has outshone Norris in qualifying, but Lando seems to have the upper hand on Sunday. Now, don't get me wrong, Lando has been absolutely brilliant, but if you look a tad closer at Oscar's races, you'll realize he's had more than his fair share of bad luck. Let me break it down for you. In the British Grand Prix, Oscar pitted right before the safety car was deployed and lost the 3rd place to Hamilton and finished 4th. In the Hungarian Grand Prix, it was another tale of woe. Piastri was cruising comfortably in 3rd place until a rendezvous with the curbs caused floor damage that severely hampered his car's performance, squashing his podium hopes. In Spa, Oscar secured a solid 2nd place in the sprint race, but the main event, well, it was a disaster. On the very first corner of the very first lap, contact with Sainz sent him into the DNF zone. It was a bold move, no doubt, but one that didn't quite hit the mark. Then, in Monza, an unexpected tag from Hamilton on the straight left Oscar with wing damage that demanded a pit stop for wing replacement and completely ruined his race. In Singapore, Oscar did a brilliant salvage job recovering from 17th to 7th. Then came Japan, where Lando was undeniably the quicker McLaren. So, when the team signaled the swap, Piastri moved aside, and both McLarens rocked the podium, marking a spectacular day at the office. The real showstopper was Qatar. That's where Piastri turned on the afterburners. He claimed the sprint shootout pole, the sprint win, and snagged a thrilling 2nd place in the main race, hot on Verstappen's tail. So honestly, it's a bit of a head scratcher trying to gauge Oscar's race performances in those last 8 outings. He was right in the mix, but seemed like luck had a bit of a grudge against him. Now, looking at the overall picture of the season so far, they seem pretty evenly matched in qualifying, although Lando has qualified ahead of Oscar most of the times, but Oscar hasn't been too far behind. Lando seems to have the upper hand in the overall race pace, and I think it's mostly due to Lando's more experience in Formula 1 and much better familiarity with the car and the circuits. Last race in Qatar showed that with each passing race, Oscar is growing more comfortable in that McLaren cockpit, and he's learning at warp speed. Now, Lando for sure would be feeling a tad more pressure than in the past couple of years. The teammate battle has intensified significantly. With Oscar breathing down his neck every race weekend, it's clear that Lando's got a formidable challenger. And honestly, I don't think Lando expected Oscar to shine this brightly in his rookie season. Right now, Lando is the leading point scorer for McLaren and holds a slight edge because of his significant experience advantage, but that lead might just be fleeting because Oscar is unveiling his true potential. With every race, he exudes more confidence, control, and competitiveness. Comparing these two isn't as simple as black and white. If I were to liken them to another iconic driver duo, it might just be Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton from 2007. I know they're not battling for the championship this year, and they haven't had many face-offs on the track. But we're talking performance, we're talking competitiveness. You get what I'm saying, right? Honestly, it's a bit of a stretch, I know. The million-dollar question of who's superior, well, that's a matter of perspective at this stage. But one thing's for sure, they're the strongest driver pairing in the Formula 1 grid right now. I think we'll have a clearer picture by the end of the season. There are still 5 races left, and anything can happen in the world of Formula One. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to stay tuned for more videos.